So yeah, I was talking about the federal standard that classifies different spaces in your clean room. I told you class 1 is the cleanest environment, and then class 100, and then it goes down. So there are about 6 different classification systems through the federal standard. The more and more companies in the biotech areas are using, I guess, moving away from federal standard because they have to sell their product to the overseas market, and everyone else except for the US is using the either European or international standards. So the federal standard is kind of outdated, but still there are many biotech industry I guess people they are using these terms. They say class 100 space, class 10,000 space, class 100,000 space. When they do that, then you need to understand what they're talking about. So the cleanest environment in your clean room will be class 100 space. So that'll be the space where your drug vial filling will take place. If you go back to that picture, yes, inside of clean room, class 100 space will be the cleanest environment where the drug filling will take place inside of this filling machine. Right now this hole is open, but when this cleaning validation is done, these holes will be filled up with the glove compartment, so everything will be sealed up. The inside of this filling machine is the cleanest environment, just as class 100. Okay, that's the cleanest. And the next environment you will get to work with will be class 10,000. Probably that'll be the area where these individuals are standing in this clean room area. So next clean room space. And then class 100,000 may be the upstream downstream suite, where people will be gowned up, but they are not aseptically gowned up. So there are two different gowning requirements. One is gowning like that, it's aseptic gowning, but the other type is the gowns that maybe you can say scrubs with shoe cover and beard cover, and the hairnet. There's a last degree of gowning requirements that will be about 100,000 environment. Okay, and then if we look at the ISO standard, ISO means International Standardization Organization. So many countries try to come together, set up an international standard. That's what ISO is, right? ISO 14644-1 shows you that clean room classification that everyone else is following except for the US. Right? So the difference is, like I said, they use matrix unit. So instead of saying cubic feet space, they will say, the cubic meter space. So they also have ISO class 1 through 9. This is more classification. So ISO 1 being the cleanest environment, almost no particles of this size. ISO 2, next clean. So then it goes down to ISO 5, which has these many particles within 1 cubic meter space. Of course, 1 cubic meter is larger than 1 cubic feet, and ISO 7 is about that. ISO 8 is that. Okay, so these red highlighted ones are similar to the federal standard. So it's at class 100, 10,000, and 100,000, right? But those are equivalent to ISO 5, ISO 7, and ISO 8. Okay, they're kind of comparable. Okay. And another standard that being used a lot these days are these standard, European standard, which is much simpler, okay, compared to these two standard, federal and ISO. So European standards, all those EU countries are using, they just designate 4 different spaces through alphabetic order, grade A through grade D, grade A being the cleanest, equivalent to class 100 in federal, ISO 5 in international ISO standard, and class B is equivalent to class 10,000, ISO 7, and then class C is equivalent to class 100,000, ISO 8. Okay, class D is almost the dirtiest environment. Okay, so these 3 standards for the clean room specifications are used a lot these days. Many companies are using European standard because it's much simpler. So if you go to Catalan, drug product manufacturing area, you will here people are saying grade A through D environment, but if you go to the same company, Catalan, go up to the drug substance manufacturing, you may hear people are saying, you know, ISO or class federal standard. So it depends who you talk to. Okay, so that's why you need to understand 3 different standards and how they are, you know, interchangeable. Those kind of standards are important. Okay, something for you to understand. So again, the classification, class 100, grade A environment, you know, ISO 5 equivalency is demonstrated using this bullseye chart. And then air handling system that goes into the cleanup, of course. HVAC system is controlled, and then they should have HEPA filter. HEPA stands for what? High efficiency particulate filter system. So if you have a very bad seasonal sinus allergy, you may have an air purifier with HEPA filter in them, because the air purifier helps you to remove all those pollen dust from your home. So HEPA filter is very efficient removing all air particles. Okay, so that's what clean room designs are using to remove particles. Okay, so because those filters have pores that are smaller than 0.3 micron, or 0.2 microns what they have as pore size. So anything that's larger than 0.2 micron, like 0.3, they'll be all trapped at very high efficiency. That's why it's high efficiency particular air filter. It removes most of them, 99.97% efficiency. By doing so, reduce the risk of contamination, of course. So think about the design of the air control. So it's a laminar flow. This is a clean room space. Air is coming down from the top to bottom, right? Right above that, there are HEPA filters there. And not only that, from outside of the building, air is brought in. There are thick layers of HEPA filters when it's brought in. Okay, so there's air exchange happening from time to time every day. And then there's a big blower controlling the airflow, another thick air filter removing most of the air particles, and then probably the third layers of a HEPA filter. So by the time your air is coming down here, it's all clean air. Okay, same thing, showing you the design of the clean room environment here, laminar flow of air. So air is coming down and then it's collected again, it's shipped back and recirculated through HEPA filter. Okay. And then aseptic technique, of course, what technique you use is important. Your behavior, your movement tend to generate more particles, so you need to be careful. Okay, so what techniques are you going to use to remove contaminants? Okay, people are the greatest source of contaminants, so that is a known fact. You know, you shed a lot, you have full of bacterial cells on your skin, your hair, your bodily fluid everywhere. Okay, you tend to shed a lot of your skin cells, like 10 million cells per day. So you are the terrific resource of the contaminants. Okay, so every centimeter of your skin has about 100,000 microorganisms covering you. Okay, so part of you is not just you. There's so many other living things making up your body. So you are the main source of the contaminants. So how you speak, how you breathe in air matters. That's why you have to face cover. It's not only to prevent the COVID-19 infection. When you go into the clean room, you tend to spit out a lot of things, so you have to cover your face, and you have to also cover your eyes by putting on your safety goggles, right? Because your saliva is full of these microorganisms like Streptococcus pneumonia. Hair, your hair is, of course, has a lot of microorganisms like Micrococcus, and your sweat, since your skin covers your body, and your sweat comes and making contact with the skin, you got a lot of microorganisms like Staphylococcus aureus, and your skin flakes can come down and be shed, and Micrococcus and all kinds of bacterial cells are covering your body. And your behavior also matters, how much vigorous activity you're involved in. Sedentary sitting, not moving much, that's good, but still you're generating that many particles, 100,000 particles per minute. But if you do a very moderate movement, just slow walking, that goes up to 1 million particles per minute. But if you are involved in little vigorous exercise, walking rigorously, then that goes up 5 more times. So you generate more particles by moving around, of course. So I told you about the different gowning requirements. That's considered as aseptic gowning, like this guy covered up. So when you go into the clean room, that is the requirement, right? So that's class 5, and then yeah, that clean room area. So the grade B and C area, you have to gown up this much. Okay, grade B mostly. But I told you in the maybe drug substance manufacturing upstream downstream, people put on lasso gown just like that. Okay, so kind of lab coat, kind of covering, shoe cover, and then hairnet. Maybe if you have beard, face, beard cover, and gloves. So there's some skin exposure that's allowed. So like maybe grade C area or grade D area. So that lasso gowning is okay. So grade D, what does that mean? So it's the European standard. It's going back there. It's the dirtiest environment. So that's the drug substance manufacturing area. So you can gown up last to go in there. It's okay. Okay. So grade D, upstream downstream area, but drug product manufacturing, definitely it's this aseptic gowning. So that's the grade B and C area. Okay, so grade B and C, where is that again? In the European standard, right here, B and C, that are equivalent to class 10,000 and 100,000. Okay. Okay, so the gowning requirements we talked about, and what else? So clean behavior, I told you, you should not move around a lot, you should not speak a lot, and if you're sick, and you should not come to work and go into gown room. Same environment regulation these days with COVID-19. If you're sick, stay at home because you may have that infection, and you don't want to spread your germs into your manufacturing area or your co-workers, right? So don't go into the clean room and don't come to the work. And traffic should be minimized, and any of your behavior like head scratching, rubbing hands, touching your face should be avoided. Same way, when you put on your face mask to prevent COVID-19, you're not supposed to touch your face area, and when you open the door, okay, so how do you open the door? You don't use your palm to open the door. Instead, use your knuckle or your elbow. Okay, now you can use your hip as well. And stand freely means don't lean on anything, because when you tend to lean on, your body or the wall will be contaminated. Don't talk too much. Okay, these are all the requirements. Do not touch any items. Minimize your touch, and you, like I said, use knuckle when you try to operate the clean room telephone. Okay, and the control panel button and things like that, door lock kind of thing. And replace compromised gown or gloves. While you're working the clean room, let's say you have a tear and your glove is torn up, and you have to replace them immediately by coming out through the gowning suite area and get rid of the torn up gown and put a new gown. Same goes with the gloves as well. Okay, and the class 100 is prohibited. You're not allowed to go in there. Okay, unless absolutely required. What is the absolutely required condition? That is, probably you have to have some kind of stoppage in your filling process. So maybe the machine is broken. Then you probably have to sacrifice that batch of filled drug products, and then maybe you open up and do something, and then get rid of that and sterilize that area again, and then you can restart. Okay, so you're not allowed to go in that cleansed environment. That's the rule. Okay, now we're going to talk about the difference between sanitization and sterilization. So when I say I'm sanitizing my workbench, okay, what does that mean? You're using sanitizers to clean up. The sanitization doesn't mean that you are totally eliminating all the bioburden. You are reducing them. Okay, amount is reduced. But when you say I'm sterilizing, that means you are totally eliminating bioburden by completely killing. How do you do that? Maybe by doing sterilization using autoclave or gas method, or something really strong enough to eliminate all those things. So understand the difference between these two words, okay?